I took my pass rate from 10% to about 60%.
Whoa.
I was voted #1 analyst in Thailand. So I know what it's like to go from 0 to #1. I've increased the price over time, and basically the price was 1,500 roughly, and now it's 3,000. I decided I would just tell them exactly what Amy Porterfield told me, and I said, the Valuation Masterclass is about transformation, not information. I have an accountability discussion on Fridays when I meet live, and then I tell them if you're not caught up on Monday, you're kicked out. No questions asked, no refund. I deliver transformation that leads to lasting change.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. We are here to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online course industry. My name is John Ainsworth and today's guest is Andrew Stotz. Andrew, tell us about your course business. What kind of courses are you selling? Who are you helping?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, and hello to everybody listening and viewing. And basically, I came to Thailand in 1992 to teach finance. And it's 33 years later, I've been teaching finance. Now, after 1 year, I realized I'm not going to make any money as a university lecturer in Thailand. So I went to work as an analyst, and I had a 20-year career as an analyst, and I rose up over time to become a head of research, and then I was voted #1 analyst in Thailand. So I know what it's like to go from 0 to #1. And what an analyst does is, we spot stocks that are interesting. We write research on them. We build valuation models on them. We write reports, and then we bring those to institutional investors in London and New York. And I traveled all around the world talking to those guys. And so all along, I have been teaching at university equity valuation. And in 2017, I was standing in front of 14 students at a university thinking, what am I doing? Half the students didn't show up, and, part of them were late. And I was just thinking, I want to make a bigger impact. And that's when I moved. That's when my colleague, Alex, he said, why don't we create the Valuation Masterclass? So we grabbed the valuationmasterclass.com website, and we put the course online in 2017. And that's when we started. And that's kind of my origin story. But, it was ups and downs. And what I saw with on-demand course was that the pass rate is, if you're lucky, it's 10%. It's hard for people to keep disciplined. And my course is not a short course, there's a lot of content there. And so I was kind of frustrated over time that I still wasn't making the impact. And then I took Amy Porterfield's course. And when I did that, she gave me the permission. I got it. Build a community, deliver a transformation. And in COVID time, I decided I'm going to bring this into a cohort. And I asked for people around that were interested on my Facebook. And I had, 8 people show up at my house at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. And we did 6 weeks where I just winged it and taught it live with all this different stuff, gave them assignments and stuff. And then that was Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp 0, I call it, ground 0. And then I moved it online as a cohort-based business. And now we're just completing bootcamp number 22. So I've been through a lot of iterations of how I teach people how to value companies and build a competitive advantage in company valuation.
So how are these people finding you? Do you build an audience on YouTube or Instagram, or you mentioned Facebook? Where are people finding out about you from?
It's almost all LinkedIn.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And just because I just never did much on the other spaces. And so I have, posted lots of different stuff on LinkedIn. I wouldn't say I'm not a shining star of generating, billions of dollars from it. But what I've done is, I put out interesting posts and people said they're interested. And then I also, one of the things that I've done. So let me go to some interesting things that I've done that I think the audience could benefit from. The first is I took my pass rate from 10% to about 60%.
Whoa.
And
okay.
That was shifting from on-demand to cohort-based.
Okay. Yeah.
And Amy Porterfield talked about transformation, delivering a transformation. So I realized in one of my first boot camps, I launched the first night when we went live, with students from around the world. And I decided I would just tell them exactly what Amy Porterfield told me. And I said, the Valuation Masterclass is about transformation, not information. And I repeated that about 4 or 5 times. And I asked them at the end of the night, what did I say the Valuation Masterclass is about? And they were like, huh? And I realized I had to repeat it like 6 times. So the next time I launched, I repeated it 6 times. And I asked them, throughout the session. And then they remembered. And now I repeat that every time I go live with the students. I talk to them about it. And then when we get to the graduation ceremony, where I dress up in a military uniform with a hat, and basically I say, welcome to the Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp graduation ceremony. I want to salute you for making it through. So I've built this intensity, and I've built this whole structure around accountability and all of that. And that basically helped them stay engaged for the 6 weeks of the Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp.
And how does that, you mentioned that people turned up at your house at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. Did they stay there till 6 p.m. on Friday afternoon? Like how long were people there for during the week?
That was just the first one that we did live. Then we went online after that. So yeah. But it was from 7 a.m. until 3:30 in the afternoon. I worked them hard, and so that was just kind of the beginning. And I realized, one of the things that I believe is that people will rise to the challenge that we bring them. And I really, truly believe that our potential is huge. And so another thing that I've included in the bootcamp, many things that I've included over the time, is I have something called the standards of excellence. Mm-hmm. And I introduce it on the first night, and I say, this is bad behavior, this is good behavior. And, for a lot of young people, they haven't been told, like, turn on your camera when you show up. You don't have your camera on in the cohort group, I'm going to kick you out. You can watch the recording. You want to pay a lot of money to sit and watch a recording, that's fine. But if you're going to be in the group, you need to engage. When we send out a message, you need to respond. So we have 5 important accountability type of things, teamwork type of things, because I'm also trying to help them not only build a skill in valuation, but I'm also trying to help them to build a character that will allow them to get the job that they want, whether that's their first job in finance. So I have three people. I was just listening to the lady, what was her name, that was talking about the avatars. No, there was a guy talking about the avatars. I forgot his name now, but he was saying, you got to get your avatars.
Probably Josep.
Yes, that was it. And my avatars are very clear. Starters, advancers, and switchers. Starters are people who are trying to start their career in finance. So think university graduates from finance. Answers are people who are already working in finance, but are not happy with the progress of their career development. And I know how to go to the top, right? And then switchers. These are mainly engineers and accountants who want to move their career into finance. But every time they apply for a job, people go, oh, why should I even look at you? You don't have any education or experience in finance. I solved their problem.
Yeah. So how much does it cost someone to go through the cohort now? And is it still 6 weeks? And then how you just stop there and you answer that.
Yeah. So I've increased the price over time. And basically the price was $1,500 roughly. And now it's $3,000. And it was 6 weeks for the first 21 boot camps, and this is 22. And it's the first time I've expanded it to 12 weeks because I've realized I have more value to give. And I realized that I'm not actually getting what I want. What I want is a complete transformation, right. A 6-week transformation already, roughly 60% pass rate is great. But what I really want is for them to go out and get top-notch jobs or get an advancement in their career or get a job in finance if they're a switcher. And I know I need more time with them. And so I've really focused in on that. And so far it's gone well. Now my pass rate's going to probably end up being, instead of 60%, it's going to be 40%. But, that's part of what I'm going at, is trying to, push them. Now, so if my pass rate in the past was 60%, that means 40% either dropped out or I kicked them out, because you cannot remain in the boot camp if you're not up to date. So I have an accountability discussion on Fridays when I meet live. And then I tell them, if you're not caught up on Monday, you're kicked out. No questions asked, no refund. And so I have had, 40% that have either quit or been kicked out, no refund. I do give a 7-day refund for the first, 7 days, but I would say I probably had, out of 1,000 students that have come into the Valuation Masterclass bootcamp, I've had probably 3 requests for refunds, and within the
Okay.
7 days.
And then what, those people who stay in but then get kicked out, do they get access to all the recordings afterwards, or like what do they kind of get? How does that work?
Yeah. So the way it works is, say, look, you're not up to date. I've warned you, you've seen it. And so therefore, I'm going to take you out of the boot camp. You're going to go into the on-demand course.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're in the on-demand course, and I tell them, look, maybe you have a problem with your family or, situation in your life. Come back to the next boot camp and I'll give you a discounted price. So it's not like just get away from me. As I always tell people, no blame, no shame. If it's not the right time or it's not the right place, that's fine. So that's what I do. So they still are engaged. Now they're not seeing the videos from the live sessions. They're just seeing my course content. So one of the things that I love about online courses is that I never want to teach again.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I record amazing videos of the content, let's say 30 to 50 hours of video, depending on, how long the course is. And I perfected those videos and I drip them to them, and they have to watch those. And if they don't watch them, or if they advance through them by clicking a button to get to the end, I can see that, and they're going to be in trouble. And so I just love the idea that the time. And so one of my students from bootcamp number 7 or so, he lives in Egypt, and he was really great. And he said, I want to work on this. And now he runs the whole bootcamp. Now I set the curriculum, and then I am there for 1 hour on Monday and 1 hour on Friday. He does a tutoring session on Tuesday and Thursday. And what I've really come up with is I used to get a problem, and I think some of the in your audience may face this problem, is that they want personal feedback. We're giving them a lot of content and they're trying to apply it. They want personal feedback. But I realized I can't scale with this, and so I came up with the idea that first thing, as I told my team, I was like, first thing is we really need to clarify weekly projects. This week, this is what you do. So I've now created a video that I do at the beginning of each week that's about 20 minutes. Let me tell you what your assignment for this week is. I walk them through everything about the assignments and the deadlines and everything. So now we're much more clear, and I keep that out of my live session. I used to spend a lot of time explaining the assignment. No, let's just have a great video explaining that. And that way my live session's going to be a fun, interactive time talking about something related to the financial markets and valuation. And then what I then do is all students have to submit their work for the week by midnight on Thursday. So they all have submitted, and then people have to volunteer to present their work on Friday. And so we get 2 to 4 volunteers, depending on how complex the work is for that week. Let's say we have 4 volunteers, and then they present the work. I call Friday Feedback Friday, and then I critique their work on Fridays. And then everybody's focused, everybody's there, and everybody's like cheering that person because, they're coming up against me, and I'm a top head of research, had top analysts, and I know what I'm talking about. And so I, go, no, that doesn't make sense. And, that story doesn't make sense, and your numbers don't match. But it turns out I don't get any more of the issue of, complaints that I need, personal feedback. And so that's the way I solved that, Feedback Friday.
So how does this work in terms of the process of selling it? So you've got, I saw 45,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So you're posting content there. Then what? What happens next?
So we have an email list, and we have like a core sequence that they go through. Mm-hmm. And basically we start telling them that the course is coming. We discount the price and say it's going to be rising over the next couple of, weeks and months as we get closer to it. And I would say that's a big part of it. There are some people that just reach out, through LinkedIn, through email. And then my students are great advocates. So they recommend people, and I give a discount. If a student recommends someone, then they're able to bring a little discount to their friend. And so that's the big way that I've gotten people over the years, and I wouldn't even, I wouldn't say that, I don't have a knockout funnel. Now, one of the things I did do is I found an organization to pay me a big chunk of money at the beginning of this year to issue scholarships at low prices to young people. This is a stock exchange of Thailand who wants to get more financial analysts in the market that have logical, the problem is a lot of financial analysts are going into coding and all that. And so we're losing them. And if we don't have good financial analysts, we don't have an efficient market. And so I got some funding from the stock market to say we want to fund a scholarship in our name. And then we have a scholarship process. And so the students go through that and we screen them and then eventually we'll grant them. So we're doing 100 students this year will come through that scholarship where the organization paid up front. Student has to still pay a little bit because we want some, skin in the game, but that's another source. And so I'm working on that. I've also done partnerships. Really now it's a platform. I've got students coming in that want a transformation, they want better jobs, all that. And now I'm doing more outreach to firms. I've had some sponsorships from firms where I can basically deliver a pipeline of students. If a firm in, Tokyo says they want to have, 15 new financial analysts within, let's say 14 weeks, or a few months, I can deliver them the people they should be interviewing. We can do that through Facebook ads, in Tokyo and bring in the people through a scholarship under that bank's name. And so that's part of what I'm working on expanding, because really, ultimately, what I need to continue to do is continue to make sure that what comes out the end of the Valuation Masterclass bootcamp is exactly what the corporates want and the banks want, investment banks. And as I continue to improve that, then I get paid on both sides and bring value to both sides. And I think one of my points to the financial institutions is that I'm testing something beyond competence. I'm testing discipline. And there's plenty of people that you can hire that have a high GPA and they're going to crash and burn when they work for you because they're addicted to their phone or they just don't have the discipline to do stuff. And you won't know that. They'll look good on paper. So part of my argument is I can save you the time because I'm putting these young people to the test. And if they can survive, they have the discipline, but also the interest, Ultimately, what we do is the tangible outcome that they get is they have initiated coverage, research coverage on 4 companies, globally. So they have written a 20 or 30 page report, 4 of them on 4 different companies. They've also recorded them, which originally I just had them submit stuff, but I realized they're not great at presenting and they need to get better. So every single week in 12 weeks, they have to submit a short 3-minute video presenting the work they did that week. And that is amazing because now they start to get much more comfortable in the way that they deliver, online and all that.
So now that you're changing it to 12 weeks, are you changing the price, or was that you changed it to 3,000 and that's because you're changing
the increase? That's the increase from 1,500 to 3,000.
And then
also, I survey the students every single after every boot camp, and I give them the exact same question. Now that you understand what's in the boot camp, what do you think is the value? And so I've seen that value rise and rise over time. And now I'm ready to, really capture that value.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how does it work with the payment from the businesses who want to hire these analysts? Is it only that you're getting paid if they've paid up front for you to find them a cohort, a group who can go through and in Tokyo or whatever, like you said? Or is there also right, I've had these number of people go through, I'm going to connect you with some of my students and you get a kickback there as well? Or how does it work?
It's that second way is probably just too much trouble.
Okay.
What I really want to be able to say is I'm going to deliver you 10 people that you can interview and you're going to pay me, X for that, $10,000, whatever that number is. And that's going to get you these people. And that's going to save you costs on, recruiting. Now, my idea, John, is that I've been thinking about finding a placement service, a HR type of, a recruitment. Now, a lot of them don't necessarily want to deal with, younger people and stuff, which I understand. But if I can find that company that really would love to get these young people, help them, get them in front of companies, it could be a way for them to open doors. And then we have some kind of share of the fee that they're going to earn where I can deliver to them, and then they can do the part that, it's not my expertise, and it's not like I really want to be helping these guys build their, uh, their profiles and all that. Although I help my students with that, but I would love to partner with someone like that.
Mm. It's one of those interesting things in business, isn't it? Where there's all these opportunities that could work, but it's like, well, how much time have I got? Like, I've got a thing that's working. Do I just keep doing this, or should I add in this extra layer? How much work is that to do? Okay, that's interesting. When you are doing these deals, like the what guys in Tokyo that you mentioned, is that something you've done regularly, or is this a totally new thing for you?
It's pretty new. I've done probably, let's say, 3 of those deals in the last 2 years, and they've been, pretty short term.
Okay.
And part of what I found was that I don't think I have enough flow coming out of the boot camp of the caliber that I need. I do have some,
Yeah.
but the problem is, let's just say you have 100 people come in, and 60 of them get to the end. Some of them are still working. They're not even, still studying. So some of them are like they're in 4th year. They're not
Right.
really eligible right now. So the companies don't want to deal with that. There's plenty of people that just have jobs and they're not actually looking for, what's being offered. Some of them, like one of my companies was a consulting firm. So I did have a student in in India, and she was, a superstar. And so the firm that was sponsoring was a consulting firm, and I introduced them, and now she runs their, a big part of their India business. So, but it's something that I've got to make sure that I get better and better at getting the cohorts. And, that's part of the reason why I reached out to you, because I really, listened to your focus and your guest focus on the selling aspect of it. And, one of the things that I say, the great book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why, really helped me to think about my why. And my why really goes back to when I was 17, I was arrested and I was put into a drug rehab, and I got out of that drug rehab and I started getting high again. And this was many years ago, and I grew up in Ohio, and I got out of that drug rehab, started getting high again. Then I went to another one, and that was 45 days. I stayed clean. And then they said, you're so messed up, you need another 7 months. So I went to a 7-month treatment center. So it was basically the 9 months of my high school year, and I was in rehab. When I graduated from rehab was also the day I graduated from high school. And that day, and before that, let's say September 15th, 1982, it was my sobriety date. And so I haven't had any alcohol or drugs for 43 years. And basically, I had a lot of people come along at that time that were either paid or volunteering to help me. And they helped me make a real transformation. I think when you get sober at that young of an age, you really get a chance to reboot. When you get sober at 40, it's like everything's messed up, and it takes so much work to untangle all the trouble that we've caused. But I was lucky. And so that's part of my why. And that is, I deliver transformation that leads to lasting change. And that's it. And so I now have a platform in the Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp that's high quality, amazing 600 positive testimonials, basically. And I'm ready to deliver that to the world. And so when I listen to what you and your guests are doing, I'm like, I just felt like, yeah, I need more of that.
So what's any of the issues for you at the moment? Like, what's stopping you from being able to get this out to more people?
I would say that ultimately, I think everything in business comes down to leads.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not getting thousands of people coming on to your emails or, into your funnel, it doesn't matter how great your course is and all that. So I think my whole challenge, and this is because there's 4 other parts of my business. I have another business in Thailand, which is a coffee business. We roast coffee. We got 100 employees, and I take care of the accounting and finance of that. I've got another business of my life where I manage basically $150 million of Thai people's money that I'm investing outside of Thailand. That's a huge, responsibility. And I've got another part of my business, which is I produce reports on companies in Asia that are not covered by financial analysts. And so it's called Uncovered Asia. And then I have another part of my business, which is called the Profit Bootcamp, where I help mid-sized family businesses double profit in 12 months, guaranteed, or their money back. And so I got a lot of things going on. I'm good at creating. I'm good at delivering, right? And I'm good at marketing and I'm good at selling, but it's just that I don't have the time to put the tools in place. And in some ways, I often say, I wish I was less creative.
Right.
Just come up with one good idea and put it in.
A lot of our clients are like that, I think. I feel that a lot of the time. My brother came to me one day with this game. The game was, you've got, I think it was 2 minutes. About 2 minutes, and you've got to think of as many things as you could possibly do with a brick, and that's it, right? You just have to, right, great, you got 2 minutes, go, how many things can you do? He says nearly everybody that he plays this with thinks of like 2 or 3 things, and then it's like, this is a stupid game, I don't even know why we're playing this game. And he said he had like 1 or 2 other people who would think of like 10 or 15 things that you could do with a brick, and he thought of like 22.
Yeah.
And he was like, wow, look at that. And then he came to me and he asked me to do it, and I was just like, and then, you know, like, here's whatever it was, 34 things you could do with a brick. And he's just like, these are ridiculous things. I'm like, yeah, but they're things you could do with a brick, though, aren't they? You could do this.
Ask me.
And yeah. And I was like, you're hanging out with very different kinds of people to me, because I think almost everybody that I know from business could think of like 30 or 40 things to do with the brick.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the constant stream of ideas that's almost overwhelming, because it's just like, oh my God, there's too many things that we could do. We could do this or this or this or this or this. Oh my God, there's so many things. And that's a lot of people that I know. And then there's, I guess, another segment who are like nearly everybody I know who runs a business seems to either be ADHD or autistic. It's like, it's one or the other, right? And it's not everybody, but it's quite a lot. And there's another group who are like the bit of autism where they're like, I don't think of any ideas, but I can lock myself in an office for 6 months, put my head down, and come out with a whole business completely built. And that's like a very different segment of friends who are like doing it kind of that way. But so I hear you in terms of the like, there's too much creativity, there's too many ideas, there's too many things you could be doing, it's almost dangerous. That's like a lot of things that you're doing, like 4 or 5 different businesses, you know?
Yeah, and I was listening to the guy, I can't remember his name, that you interviewed, that had 35,000 people in a Facebook group where he's selling insurance training. I forgot
David
his
Denning.
name.
Yeah, David Denning. Yeah.
And it just, I listened to that and I was like he started with selling.
Yeah.
I started with content. You know, in some ways I like to explain, like, it's the same thing in my coffee business. Dale, my business partner, and I, we're kind of like engineers. You know, engineers are going to, you know, work on it and make it great. I don't want to bring it out to the world until it's, you know, whereas I had another guy I used to work with, and I tell you, nothing was complete that he brought out. But he just sold like crazy. I'm like, that guy went much further than me in his career. And I was like, you know, that is a good lesson. And so that's where I'm at. I'm at the create stage is done. It's there, it's running, it's great. And now it's scaling. And so I think what I need to figure out is, how do I appeal? I got my avatars very clear. You know, I know exactly, and I literally have them. I know them because with the boot camp, with a cohort, I have worked with all of them. And that's part of delivering a lasting change, is that those people, each one of those students means something to me, and I mean something to them. You know, I think about in my first boot camp that was online, it was a guy named Rashid Lawal, who was from Nigeria. Nigerian university teachers were on strike. University's closed. He's in his final year studying finance. And so he doesn't have a computer at home. He's watching the course on a video live on a mobile phone. And in order to do the homework in Excel, he asked his teacher if he could get access to his office at the university. He walked to the university and did the assignments. Now that kid works for Bank of America, you know, and, you know, what a dedicated young guy. And so to watch my students rise has just been great. So I'm ready. I now need to scale that. And I don't really know how. You know, I look at, you know, email this. I oftentimes say to myself, I'm not really a writer. Like I don't like wake up and like write. I remember I had a friend of mine in Bangkok. He's written many books, and I've written like 6 books. And
I've written
we went
6
to,
books, but I'm not a writer. You know,
yes, but
it's just
you're
6.
gonna
It's only 6
understand
books. Yeah.
what what we went to this retreat, the two of us, and we had bungalows right next to each other in Samui Island in Thailand, and it was beautiful. And it was also like no food and, all kinds of crazy stuff. But one day I knocked on his door in the morning and, have coffee in his room. And and he was sprawled out on his bed, and he's got pens and papers and, books, and he's writing. And I'm like, what have you been doing? He says, I just been writing in my journal and stuff like that. And I was like, that's it. You're a writer. I'm an author.
Okay.
And that was like the moment that, like, writing is painful for me.
Right.
I'm doing it because, I want to do it for whatever purpose. But he takes joy in writing. And that's when I kind of realized, like, yeah, I don't wake up and but I listen to some people that write these amazing emails and amazing newsletters. And I'm like, I feel like, can I sell without being a writer? That's one of the questions I have in my mind. I can talk, I can do videos every day, Can I write? I can write if forced to, but is that really what I want to do with myself? Or maybe I should just outsource it and find somebody that, one of my ex-students or someone like yours, people yourselves and others, and just say, yeah, deliver the content. But every time you try to outsource, you realize, it doesn't work. And then you got to figure out, okay, how do I do this? So I must admit, I'm a little bit lost, and I felt a little bit bad coming on your show, because I felt like so many of your guests have it all together on the funnel and all that. But I also know that I'm sure there's probably some of the listeners or viewers that are thinking, I'm kind of more in Andrew's camp right now, and I need to figure out what are my next steps.
Yeah, I think the majority of people that I talk to haven't got it all figured out. There are some who are like, right, I know all of this stuff and I'm crushing it, but like, even then it's like how they're struggling to manage their time with it, and it's difficult to fit it all in. And it's like, well, I kind of don't know what I'm doing, or I know what I'm doing, but how do I hire other people? And it's like, you're not alone on it. I wouldn't I wouldn't feel that way too much.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I'd say 90%, 95% of people I talk to, obviously it's a slightly biased sample because I'm talking to people who then want our help, but nearly everybody is like, I'm really good at making courses. I'm really good at making content and building an audience. And I don't get this stuff in between. I don't know what to do, and I'm doing my best, but I'm kind of just, struggling through. What kind of level are you at the moment with revenue? You mentioned like you had 1,000 students. So I was doing the maths on it. So that adds up to like 1.5 million, but you've got some of these other deals as well. Like, what's like an average month for you, if you're happy to share?
It's definitely not that, because I'm discounting a lot to get it. And that's part of why I know, I gotta keep improving this. So number one, I'm doing discounts. Number two, I'm doing scholarships, for students. I want some great people. And so with discounts and scholarships, I also do an internship program. And so I've got that. And so I've got global interns coming in. So I'm much, much lower than that. And, let's think theoretically, I can launch 3 or 4 times a year, but let's just say 3 times a year. And let's just say, for just the sake of argument, let's just say that I can, I can sell at $1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I have to pay out some for selling and all that, but let's say I get $1,000. I should have 100 students at $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
That should be what I'd be getting every single time I launch, right? And then I should be raising that over time, but I'm not there. Definitely not there.
Got it. Okay, cool. What's the vision for you? You've kind of talked about the transformation you want to help make. Do you have a number of students you want to try and get through, that you want to have in your programs? If you hit that, if you were doing 3 launches, $1,000 per person, 100 students per launch, would you be like, cool, that's great? Or is it like, no, that's step 1, and then there's another level?
Yeah, there's another level. And basically, I would say the capacity with the infrastructure I have and the team that I have, the capacity is 500 students per launch.
Oh, okay.
That's the capacity.
Right.
And that,
wow.
and once I get to that capacity, I can take it to another level. Right. Basically, because I'm kind of that engineer type, every constraint I come up with a solution, an automation solution, a system solution, but 500 is not a problem. So, and truthfully, I used to do it, the 6-week one, I launched 5 to 6 times a year. So let's just say I could literally do 500 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that would, let's just say that we can do that. That's 2,000 students a year that I'm making a real impact on. That's beautiful.
Nice. What's the focus, do you think? Is it on getting in more students that through your kind of funnels that are just paying you? Or do you think it's like this thing with the companies paying you money to get a load through? Do you get a feeling of like which of those is a bigger focus for you? Or do you think it needs to be both?
It's got to be both. I mean, on the company side, there's big wins out there. There's probably 10 companies out there that really need this. And they're willing to pay because they see the value. And with that, on the output side, that then attracts more people coming in on the input side. And so I would say it's both. But ultimately, the other thing that's a little bit of an interesting thing is that, most courses around the world, most things around the world center out of the US, and then they're adapted globally. And I started in Thailand. I've been here 33 years, and I just made a global course out of Thailand. So I'm naturally selling to kind of emerging market students and students that don't necessarily, the price point for them is very different. And so part of what I need to do is target London, Frankfurt, Paris, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Stockholm, these, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, Seoul. Like, I think I need to do a city focus first and then really start to expand in that way. And then I think a university focus where I try to reach out to university professors in finance to say, we've got these either scholarships or internships, because I do think those connections are great, and it can bring in a steady flow of students. And, that's something that's kind of exciting, since I've been teaching at university all my life, and I have a PhD in finance, and I teach, at university all the time because I enjoy that, not as much as I used to, but,
Nice. Andrew, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. If someone wants to go and check you out and see what you're doing, where should they go and look?
Just go to valuationmasterclass.com and it's right there. And I do have a podcast where I got 800 episodes of it, and it's called, it's called myworstinvestmentever.com.
Okay.
And I help, basically, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people reduce risk in their lives. And I do that by interviewing people about their worst investment ever. And so I've got incredible interviews with amazing people that are willing to walk through the catastrophes in their lives, what happened, what went wrong, and how do they, what did they learn from it? And thankfully with AI, I'm now in the process of extracting that and creating a great course on how to reduce risk, for everybody, not only investing in the stock market, but buying a house and a condo. And I've got stories on everything, so that's another part. So they feel free to listen to My Worst Investment Ever.
Andrew, thanks so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate your time. This was amazing. And as always, to everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. Really love you guys. All right. Talk to you later.
Thanks.